Okay, we're live. Hamadi Hump
Live
Day, back again.
on the
You
proper
thought you
day.
got rid of us, but you did not.
Well, everyone can get rid of us when they want to,
That's right. That's right. Just change the channel if you don't like what we're talking about.
Yes, welcome to the most offensive podcast hour on the internet.
It's not even that bad. I don't feel like, you know. I feel like we attempt to be controversial, but we end up agreeing with each other most of the time. It's starting to get kind of boring.
Yeah, you know what? Let's try something. We need to. No, I won't do it. Be like, hey, guess what? No,
Well, man, there's a
actually,
ton going on right now, man. I barely escaped with my life from Florida. So I flew into Boca Raton Sunday morning. I had
uh,
a conference, had a meeting and a conference the next day, and then flew back out Monday late afternoon. But it was gloomy and rainy, and that's even on the good side. That's the Atlantic side. That's not even the Gulf side. So
yeah, it's Milton is supposed to hit tonight sometime, right? It's supposed to make
mhm.
landfall.
Yep,
That one looks like it's going to be nasty.
yep.
A big
I've got a
surf.
couple of friends that live in Tampa too. So to those of you guys in Tampa, good luck.
Get out. Like, why are you
Get
there?
well. And
Go leave.
I asked one of my buddies. He's like, yeah, we kind of looked at it, and we're gonna stick around. I'm like, okay. Uh, your own mayor says that you may not live, but okay.
Yeah. You know, Russ and I have a rule since we're in a hurricane zone, and we'll ride out a one. One is fine, but anything above one, it's kind of like, why? I mean, the kind of
Mhm.
damage that a two or a three could do, it's not the kind of thing that you can fix on the at the time. It's
Right,
like if a tree falls onto your roof, it's like, oh, I'll go take care of that. It's like, no, no, you're not going to take care of that. There's nothing you can do except sit there and watch the water fall into your house, which
right.
you can just let it do while you're somewhere else
While you're
if you
somewhere
want.
else, that's right.
Yeah,
Yep.
like that's going to happen anyway. So, yeah, if a four or five was barreling towards Houston, we would just it would just be elsewhere.
Hit the road, right.
Yeah,
I
there's
had some. I remember living in Houston years ago. I had some friends that I'm trying to remember what year that was. It was like Hurricane Ruby or something, if I remember right. Ruby sounds like the right name. Uh, but it looked like, oh man, this is gonna flood. It's gonna be terrible. Everybody was like evacuating, and we decided not to for some reason. And uh, yeah, we decided not to. And uh, sure enough, we had friends that were stuck on I-45, like just south of Conroe, basically, and they literally couldn't move. And they finally decided, now forget it. And they barreled through the median and turned around and went back home. And they're just like, well, if it's going to hit us, rather hit me at home rather than being stuck in the freeway with no gas. And
yeah.
so, and then it ended up like blowing over their lawn chairs, and they were like, oh, that was much ado over nothing.
Well, and you guys, when you were in Houston, you were in a second floor apartment, right?
No, I was in the Rice Hotel. I mean, I was 11 stories
Oh,
up.
yeah. So it's not like anything's.
Oh,
Oh,
right,
if that floods, yeah, then the apocalypse has happened. It doesn't matter.
right. I
Yeah.
feel like it was. I feel like it was a few years, maybe before that or after that. I can't remember which one it was. Wasn't it Harvey that like completely obliterated downtown and like all these buildings flooded and
Yeah.
um,
That was
yeah.
that was 2018, I think.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah. We were here with that one. That was wild because it was a hurricane, but it had extremely low wind. And so it just hovered over the city, evaporating the Gulf of Mexico on one side, rotating it around and dumping it onto
dropping
downtown
it. Right. Yeah, that's
like a
crazy.
conveyor
Right.
belt. It just sat there for a couple days, and yeah, everything was underwater. It was that was rough. It was
You
funny
see
during
some of
that
these.
one. We didn't lose power or internet or anything.
Oh
So
wow.
Yeah. So I'm sitting here watching the rain come down outside and like watching the water get closer and closer to the house, making steak and watching Netflix. And it's like, this feels really strange,
all
like
the
in any
co-
moment we
all the
would have to go
conveniences of modern
upstairs.
life.
Yeah, like the downstairs will be flooded, but until then we're just gonna keep doing our thing,
Yep.
waiting. Yeah.
Well, I heard a couple of conspiracy theories this week that from our friends on the right, which I just I cannot get away from having to poke fun at these people, but
Oh, what are they
um,
saying?
oh, just talking about how the CIA for years has the ability to target weather, and they're manipulating these hurricanes to dump
Yeah,
all over Trump friendly areas or whatever. And I was like, wait a minute,
I
so
heard that.
so now you're saying that humans do impact weather cycles? I it just
Well, no, yeah, I've heard that conspiracy theory that they're using some kind of like pulsed waves or
right.
or like microwave technology or something to steer the hurricane.
Mm,
So
using
so
those
the theory
Jewish
is
space
like,
lasers.
yeah, really. So in this theory, humans do change the weather, but it's not through carbon.
Right,
That's that's kind of ridiculous. It's
right.
this
Space laser.
it's this other thing. Yeah. Well, and carbon is also kind of a weird one. I try to tell people like we're still in an ice age. Like this is pretty far from the planet's warmth during the time of the dinosaurs or a bunch of so like, oh my gosh, like the whole planet is going to be a desert. It's like, no, like the planet has been here during much hotter times. Like, you know, for most of the Earth's existence, there were no polar ice caps. Like
Oh, right, right. And
that's
isn't there some theory
that
too where like the atmosphere had much more moisture and
it's just
uh,
different. I mean, it's a
yeah.
different. Yeah, I mean, if you believe in kind of the standard geologic story with evolution and stuff, which I know some
Hmm.
people don't, but if you're into that kind of thing and the millions and millions of years kind of deal, then we're in the middle of an ice age right now, and it's kind of weird that we have solid ice on this planet for 12 months out of the year. That's kind of weird. And at some point we come out of it, and it'll go a lot warmer, and then it'll go cold again, and it's like these boom and bust cycles that last 100 million years at a time.
Right.
So there you go.
Rogan's had some interesting people on his podcast over the years, talking about, I guess what the last ice age was called, if I'm remembering this right, the Younger Dryas or something like that. Is that right?
Oh yeah, I don't
Anyway,
remember.
these guys, he had these guys. I should send you the link. But he's talking about, they're. I mean, this is a pretty controversial point of view, but supposedly, the accepted view of civilization that I learned in college and high school was that I think the ancient Sumerians were like the very first,
Right.
documented civilization, and then here we are now.
And
Uh,
that's Batavia, Fertile Crescent area.
right, right, right. And
Yeah.
these guys' contention is that actually, and there's all these archaeological unexplained phenomena around the world, such as like the statue heads on Easter Island, which, if you excavate, are not actually heads, but they're very, very tall statues that are buried under like massive, landslides, basically. Um, and there's different they go through. In fact, there's a series on Netflix called Ancient Apocalypse. These guys actually, have you seen that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a while, but yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, and so they go around the world and looking at these different sites that oddly, like, they're lined up with constellation. I mean, obviously man-made, and not tied to any documented civilization that we're familiar with. And so their contention
Mm.
is, through all these different, they make the case in the documentary way better than I can, but that before this round of civilization that we think of starting in ancient Mesopotamia, before that, there was another very advanced civilization that was wiped out by this particular ice age, and that this is now, at least the second, if not, who could be the third, fifth, who knows how many cycles of humans that have lived, built societies, evolved through their communities, etc., and then were wiped out by some natural cataclysm. And it's this would not be like the Noah's flood thing, because that's that's far after the Mesopotamian period. So it's interesting. It's interesting to just play with.
Well, and I think it sounds crazy until you think of the time scales. So civilizational progress can happen very rapidly. So if you think about
Witness our own
what,
country, 250 years from there to here. Yeah.
sure, yeah, like think of like industrialization, but like just think of how long we've had agrarian societies. Like don't even consider hunter gatherer, but just agrarian societies, and what kinds of civilizations that those can support, and then you can build off of the specialization that allows. You can create leisure classes. You can do all sorts of stuff, and you wind up with this really rapid advance. And by very rapid, I mean a couple thousand years,
Hmm.
right? But a
Right.
couple thousand years in geologic time
Blip.
is the rounding error. Like
Right.
that's not so. Yeah, given how long human beings have been on the planet, again, if you accept the kind of standard evolutionary story, there's plenty of time to
Hmm.
have like these outbursts of flowering of civilization,
And then
language,
reset.
art, whatever, and then have it come crashing down as a result of any number, pick your poison, war, natural disaster, whatever, and then kind of goes nascent for a while, and then but we're sort of primed to start it again when it
Right.
happens. Like we have like super old legends about what was it in Plato, the Timaeus, when he talks about like the legend of Atlantis and how there's
Right.
this technically advanced society that was wiped out by a cataclysm, and it's like they're still looking at it as like a golden age of humanity that we could reach again if we pushed ourselves. And so like
Right.
having that there, even if it's false, but it kind of gives everyone the like if we pushed ourselves, and so if
We're
civilization,
capable of so much more. Yeah.
then I mean they can get stuff done. So there's plenty of time and plenty of room. So it would be more surprising for it not to be the case. Do you ever see that movie or show on Hulu is called Devs?
Mm-mm.
Uh, it's a science fiction show about like the development of a quantum computer. But anyway,
Okay.
they wind up talking about it's a really cool show.
Okay. I
They
see that.
wind up
Yep.
they wind up talking about like humanity before civilization, before culture, writing, and so on. And so they're talking about like this group of people living in this series of caves where you have these cave paintings. And one of the guys was talking about like it's boggles the mind. Like they're sitting there, they live, they have families, they go out and hunt and come back, and nothing changes for thousands of years. And it's like that's what you would have to believe
Mm.
if you don't think there was a previous civilization to the ice age, is that like just for thousands and thousands of years human beings were totally content to live and die living, hand to mouth hunting wild game and living
Wasn't
in
that
caves.
that's the Native American story, supposedly, right?
Right, but that it's like that for all of humanity for thousands of years, nobody wants to do anything else, and
Right.
then kind of suddenly someone decides, you know what, we could form governments. It's like, well,
Well, what is
maybe.
that? What is that? What is that? You remember that movie Avatar? The mother character who's also like the
The
soothsayer or
shaman.
whatever. The
Yeah.
shot, yeah. And she says something about how we'll show you our ways and you can live with us, and then we'll see if this insanity of yours can be cured.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting that whole dynamic of like wanting to form governments and what social structures and money and whatever else is actually a disease.
Well, so um nice part about the first Avatar is that it's vague enough that you can read what you want into. The second one doesn't. I mean, they wound up. I don't know. It was too specific. Whaling is bad. Anyway,
Yeah,
but
whaling is bad.
don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it.
Um, but one of the like what exactly the insanity is, I think, is an interesting question in that movie.
Right.
Because it's certainly not social hierarchical social structures because they have one, and it's not
I
harvesting
think it's greed. It's the you don't think so?
acquisitive. Yeah, like it's not desire for advancement. It's not ambition. Clearly, they have that. It's not war, because I mean they talk about like times when the tribes were all in conflict and they're unified
Right.
under mythical leaders and so on.
Right.
So yeah, it had to have been something like what I think it's capitalism,
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
right? It's not like we're going to go harvest nature to feed our family. We're harvesting nature for profit, and then I don't.
Correct.
It doesn't matter what it's used for. All that
Right.
matters is I've converted land into gold, and that's
Right.
basically it. Or in
Well,
this case,
even the
yeah,
name of the mineral, if you remember in the new
unobtainium.
unobtainium, yeah, it's oh, you can't have it, therefore it's super valuable. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a lot
yeah,
of fun. The first movie is so brilliant. There's so many great things about it. I'm shocked that the same group of writers made the second one. Like
yeah.
it
Although
boggles the
I
mind.
did enjoy the second one. I mean, like if you get past whatever messaging piece of it you weren't into, I mean, it was still really fun to watch. I thought.
Well, so like here's an example. Can we go on a tangent about movies? Is that
Of
allowed?
course, yeah, this is our
Okay,
show.
this is our show. That's right. Hey, we don't have to take anybody's rules here. So in the first one, the Colonel Quaritch,
Right.
is he a bad person?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, he didn't occur to me that way. It was very, very predictable in terms of like, I mean, you could totally identify with why he was the way that he was, you know?
Everything he was doing, they said, if you paused the movie at any point, just randomly, and be like, why is he doing what he's doing? There's a very
You knew,
clear explanation
you knew
for
the
it.
answer. Right. Right.
Right? He's a former military. He's now a merc. He's tasked with keeping this group of people safe. It's an impossible task, but he does the best he can. He's very brave. He doesn't like to back down from a fight. So on.
I mean, the
I
worst thing you
like.
can say is that he's, into subterfuge and espionage, but I mean, that's, so was George Washington. I mean, big deal.
That was military stuff.
Yeah.
And in fact, he's openly like he tells the research doctor was like, yeah, I think it'd be great. We should have one of our guys there keep tabs on stuff. And it's like, oh, she's like the research doctor hates the fact that one of his stooges is here.
Right.
So I mean, it's
Right.
not even like it. It's not even like he's playing some kind of inside Machiavellian stuff. It's just he's doing his job.
Yeah. There's an
And
opportunity presents itself. I'm going to take advantage of it. You'd be an idiot not to. Yeah.
and then when it comes to the actual fight against the natives, and destroys the home tree, he doesn't nuke it from orbit. He sends in people to get them out. He says, "Look, we're going to give you a chance to go and tell the message that they need to leave. We don't want anyone to be hurt." He puts smoke bombs in first. I mean, it's just like we're gonna reduce the number of unintended casualties here
Yeah.
to
Very humane. Yeah.
but then also when the high explosives are going off, there is an enjoyment in the weaponry of war,
Right.
like the mechanism of war. There's something satisfying about it sits there and drinks his coffee watching
Right.
it's
Right.
just
Right.
it's like what a wonderful nuanced portrayal, right?
Yeah.
It's not because he's a bad person that he's the villain of the movie. It's
Well,
because
even that scene where he's talking to when he's trying to get the green light from the Giovanni Ribisi character or
yeah,
whatever, and he's like, "You got to
or
send me in." I mean, yeah, and he's like, "It'll be humane, it'll be this and that." And I remember at the time kind of rolling my eyes, like, "Oh yeah, sure." I mean, this guy's just what. But at the end of the day, like, I mean, he did everything that you're saying. Like, I mean, he executed that to minimize I mean, he's still the only reason you find it objectionable is because you now take the side of the natives and right. Yeah.
But I mean, he acts in a way that is, I mean, like hey, this mineral, let's try to buy it from you. No, they won't accept money. Let's try to educate. Is there something we can give you medicines? We can do this. Like, let's find some kind of exchange here where we're not just taking it from you. I mean, it's amazing when you watch it and you're like, huh, like
although to be fair, those weren't his initiatives. I mean, he
no, but
he
the
mocked
company,
them the entire movie. Yeah, but the company,
right,
yeah,
the company, right? And he's like, it's not going to work. You know, we're going to need these for it.
Those science pukes.
But the thing I think that's interesting about it is that if it had not been this mission, if it had been something where it's like, hey, we're here to get you know, this ore that's so valuable, but instead we're here to rescue the hostages, and we sent this guy to go rescue the hostages, and he used that kind of professionalism and dedication and courage, he would have been a hero.
Would have been, yeah, yep,
And
yep,
it's
agreed.
like, how interesting, right? What a cool character. And I remember when the kids were little, we would watch this movie. It was one of their favorites. And we wound up having long, interesting discussions about whether he was
A
bad.
bad guy.
Yeah. Or, you know, Annalise was
What
like,
did-
well, I kind of
I kind of liked him.
he's cool. He's cool. You know, it's like, you know, super tough grandpa guy kind of character,
Right.
you know. So Avatar 2, what is the motivation of our blue avatared Colonel Quaritch?
Yeah, no, you really have no idea. The only thing you know is that he wants revenge for Sully killing him, basically, or killing the guy that he has his memories. I mean,
He has his memories, and the thing is he's aware that he's not the Colonel, because he'll
right.
even say, "Look, I'm not that man. I'm not." But I carry his memories, and you know, it's like, well, does it make any sense to go chase someone down to the ends of the earth for a crime that wasn't even committed against you? Like, I can understand, like, hey, your orders are to do this. You're like, dang it, okay, I got to do this. But instead, like, I mean, he's almost like frothing at the mouth half the time, like, we got to get Sully. We got to kill Sully. You know, and you're like, well, why? Doesn't
You
make any
ruined a
sense.
perfectly good villain. You know,
Yeah,
what the
for
hell,
nothing.
Jim?
For nothing. Like,
aside from the activism stuff, because like there's plenty of activism in the first film, like that's fine. Like I'm all about the activism. It's like I just want the movie to make sense. I want to be able to like get lost in the story and be like, oh, this is awesome, you know. And I mean, some of it they just needed to update. You know, remember in the first Austin Powers movie, you know, when they whatever the villain is, I can't remember his name,
Dr. Evil.
but they thaw him out, you know, and he's from this
$1
previous era, and he's like
million.
ransom. It's like, we're gonna hold the world ransom. It's like, well, you must pay us $1 million, you know, and he thinks that's a huge amount of money. Everyone's laughing. You're like, that's nothing. You know, what are you talking? $1 million.
I'll write you a check.
Yeah. Oh, you're muted, by the way. But yeah, it's like no money. So in the second Avatar, they're you know, doing the whale hunting stuff or whatever those creatures are, and they find what it is. Right? There's this special little liquid. So you can think of it in sperm whale days as like the ambergris, right? The most important part of what they were harvesting from this is a small amount. They're like, yeah, this stuff is worth like, my gosh, it's worth like $20 million an ounce. I was like, that much, right? And
look at it ounce.
yeah, and you've got this whole ship, and the ship is like half destroyed and bringing this thing, and you've got this giant crew, and we've shipped you millions of miles through into this other planet.
You're talking about the whale juice, right, from the brain? Is that
what? Yeah, the whale brain stuff.
Yeah. Can you hear me or not? You have an audio trouble?
I lost you. Hold on. I think it's my audio got messed up.
Wah, wah.
Wah, wah. Let's try.
You sounded great. Your voice changed whenever.
Yeah.
What I've noticed is, and this is just kind of an aside for our viewers, but I've noticed that when I'm on headphones and the the audio and the sound, the mic, are operational at the same time. There's some kind of different, it's a different codec than say when you're just listening to music, right?
Mhm.
and you can really hear the difference in the audio quality. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, if I switch the mic to a different source than this mic, then all of a sudden the quality of the sound that I'm hearing in the headphones is like dramatically better. You probably know
How
more
does
about
this
that than I do.
does this sound
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, it sounds fine. Yeah.
This is the Samsung microphones.
Oh, all right. Way to go,
That's what you
Samsung.
Yeah. Z Fold 5, baby.
Oh, all right. Way to go, Sammy.
Yeah.
Are you on your phone?
This is my phone, yeah.
Oh, perfect, dude. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
No, but anyway, so like that there's so many moments like that in the second movie. Like the kids and I were watching it, and Sully would be talking to his, teenagers, like, okay, now go, don't do this. And Claire's like, they're just going to do it. Like, it's so
Right.
predictable.
Right.
Like, oh, don't do
Because they're
this. Okay.
teenagers. Yeah.
Guess that's what we're doing now. Like, it was just, it's just bad. Like, it's the same problem I think maybe happened with the Star Wars prequels, that George didn't have anyone around him to say, that's stupid, don't do that. Or like, that'll look really dumb if we try to put it on camera, kind of thing.
Right.
Or like radically re-edit the last 20 minutes like his wife did. Actually, I think won the Oscar for her editing of the film.
She deserved it.
That James Cameron didn't have any of that, for like, his people are just lined up to say, yes, you're a genius, and so
Right.
all of your ideas are good, and nah, they're not.
You got to admit though, man, the special effects. I mean, I watched that movie in 3D, the both of them, and it's just I think phenomenal. And of course now I got my my glasses here.
Oh dear.
Which, by the way, these are just the greatest thing for plane trips. Because I was looking next to me. Somebody had their computer, somebody else had their iPad. And meanwhile, like, I've got my phone and these things on, and I mean, they look a little goofy,
Yeah.
but it's not too bad.
What's up, bro?
The nice thing about it is, you got one screen here, one screen here. So like 3D content is really, really, really good.
Mhm.
It's not, you don't have that. I mean, it's not polarized or anything. I mean, you're getting like true 3D.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, the effects work in it was great. Like, I thought they were amazing to look at, but I don't know. It's just, spectacle is great, but it's like the video games that look amazing but are not fun. Like, so why bother? Like, at the end of the day, I want to play it.
Right. Speaking of which, you sent me is it Balatro that just hit?
Yeah, Balatro.
So
Did
I
you start
downloaded
playing
it.
it?
So I downloaded it, but I haven't gotten the space to actually like go through the tutorial and actually learn it. So
Okay.
I attempted it before when you sent it to me, but it was a little convoluted to get to, and so I was like, I'm not going to really spend a lot of time on it. But now that it's on my phone,
Yeah.
I'm excited to learn.
when I come over, we'll go through a few games and see what you think.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I added the devs to my watch list here.
Oh, okay. It's on Hulu, I think.
Yeah, that's where I went to. Trying to think if there's been anything really, really good that I've watched lately. Where I was like, oh, I wouldn't miss that one.
That was stellar.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything recently that's really blew me away. Like, did you watch Napoleon at all?
Did not see that yet. I'd heard sort of mixed reviews though. It wasn't
underwhelming. I mean, at least from my point of view, I was like, it's not really. And I don't know, some of these things, it's like maybe because the slice of time that they took to explore wasn't exactly just right. You know what I mean? Maybe I wanted a little bit more of his backstory, where he came from, and what there wasn't really a lot about like what motivated him to do these things. It was just,
what did it focus on?
I mean, it kind of picked up when he was, you know, a younger kind of officer, and then, you know, he volunteered for a couple things, and, you know, and then his career took off, and it just kind of followed him through that, you know.
Hmm.
And then a lot about the relationship between him and Josephine and whatnot, which I don't think any exploration of him as a character would be complete without looking at that relationship. So, I mean,
Sure.
good, right? I just, I still didn't have any kind of grasp of like, really like, you know, you watch a movie and you're like, you want to get to know like, okay, what, especially a movie about a guy like him. Like I remember watching Ali back in the day. Will Smith was Muhammad Ali.
Mhm.
That movie was so good. And I remember like Smith talking about it afterwards, about how much of a weight that was to, I mean, obviously an honor to be chosen for the role, et cetera, but then
Sure.
to be a black man, which, you know, I don't have that experience, but he's like being a black man and then getting chosen to play that role. I mean, it's like being, let's say, a white dude getting chosen to play like Jesus Christ or something. Like it's just such a transformational figure, you know. And the actor that played Martin Luther King in that LBJ movie or whatever, he said something real similar too. He's like, it's really difficult because you're like, there's a caricature of the person. Like everybody is watching the movie, has seen footage of him, knows who he
Right.
is, right? And so like, how do I embody those mannerisms and those things that you're used to, that you're like, okay, it wouldn't be complete. Like if you just kind of got up and did your own interpretation, it would not work.
Right.
But at the same time, so how do I do that, be faithful to that, and at the same time, like be honest about like the things that, you know, this person is feeling. And I came away with that movie, just, if you haven't, have you seen it?
I'm not. No.
Well worth it. Well worth
Okay.
it. And it's like you totally get, okay, why Ali was doing these different things, like what was going on. And I don't know whether they, you know, I haven't looked into the source material, like, you know, but I mean, he's pretty vocal about what he thought about everything, you know, so it's not like it's some mystery, but I mean, they really did a really good job of that. And maybe that's the problem with a figure like Napoleon, is maybe he hasn't written, and there's not enough source material out there to really know what was in his head or what motivated him. Unlike, say, Hitler, right? Where, I mean,
Oh,
he was prolific. You know exactly why he did it, what he was thinking. You
yeah.
know, I mean, his entire Mein Kampf is completely predictive of like literally everything that he did. So like, it's very like, okay,
Well, Napoleon did publish his memoirs while he was on Elba. So it may just be like the how reliable is your source. It's kind of like, you know, Churchill writes his own writes an autobiography, and you're like, well, you know, who's the hero of Churchill's autobiography?
Churchill, of course.
Churchill.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, well, you know, maybe maybe they're reading Napoleon's thing and are like, well, yes, but also no, let's do it this other way. You know, I don't know.
Well, either
I
way, to
yeah.
me, like after watching it, I didn't feel like I had any better understanding of who he was, and I think that's what I really wanted, you know. And maybe that was unreasonable of an expectation, but I don't think so. Most of these historical movies, like Lincoln, Spielberg's movie, for example, is just
Mhm.
phenomenal. Like I felt like I knew so
Oh, and
much.
over such a small period of time.
That's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
they took most of the Lincoln movies that I've seen are like, okay, you know, growing up in a log cabin and, you know, to
Yep.
execution. I mean, the
Teaching
whole thing.
himself law and yeah.
Right. And he was able to just take this tiny little window about not even the Civil War itself, but about just trying to pass this one amendment. And just watching his interaction and his you know, just the machinations of how he thought. And that was such a great performance. Anyway, that's what I mean. That was very, it just, that movie was very unsatisfying. It's kind of like, okay, but I wanted more, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think,
Um,
you know, the other movie that I was just, and I had a chance to rewatch it recently, was Nixon, Oliver Stone's movie
yeah.
with Anthony Hopkins. And
Yeah.
that,
That's a
that,
strange movie.
well, and but I was left with the exact same thing. I'm like, I don't get it. I don't understand, you
Yeah.
know?
It's like
Uh,
this. Well, maybe that was the vision that Stone, you know, he loves researching and kind of coming up with a different spin. And it's like, we're going to give you like the enigmatic Nixon, like the one that
You succeeded,
maybe 2 steps ahead of everybody else, but
maybe insane.
but also, yeah, maybe not. So yeah, I remember watching that movie and being like, this is a lot of close-ups of Anthony Hopkins. Like,
and his Scotch glass.
like we're gonna really show you nothing.
Right. Yeah, it's
Okay.
like his nose and his mouth a lot. And you're just like, proud of this makeup job. Well, it's fascinating too. I think that's an interesting segue to a conversation. So, like, have you had a chance to watch this Reagan movie yet?
No, I'm waiting for it to come out on streaming. My favorite movie theaters have closed down. So yeah, so I'm kind of streaming only right now because I don't want to drive 40 minutes to pay $20 to sit in the theater right now.
Well, I have the movie, so maybe you can watch it when you're over here.
Yeah,
so,
I'd love to. Have you seen it?
So I haven't watched it yet. I just got it yesterday. But it's interesting because like Reagan is such a polarizing figure today, right? Maybe not as much, but still pretty much, right? And so the movie's getting a lot of criticism for being like too Reagan friendly, or oh well, they're trying to sell this narrative to support the right wing people or whatever.
I mean, Reagan did win one of the largest electoral landslides in history when he was reelected.
Yep.
Like, didn't he win 49 states?
Yeah, I think he only lost Minnesota, if I remember right.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. Like
maybe Dukakis got Massachusetts too, or not Dukakis, Mondale. I'm thinking. Yeah.
But like, it seems like you could make a positive movie. I mean, it's like making a positive movie about George Washington. You're like, well,
that's not controversial.
Yeah, I mean, was he perfect? No, I'm sure there's all sorts of things that you could do to make the character more interesting and less of like a saint, a hagiography or something.
Right. Well, and I think that's a perfect word. That's exactly what the criticisms that I've heard. So I'm eager to watch.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious now.
Yeah.
What was the last movie we saw together? It was the Furiosa film.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Although we saw that one together.
I don't remember finishing that. I think I started it, and you may have finished it, but
I finished it.
Yeah,
you were on a lot of pain meds at the time.
Yeah, I drifted out. I mean, I remember. In fact, it's kind of funny you mentioned that because I was looking through my watch list or whatever, and I saw that, and it said watched whatever date or whatever. I'm like, remember watching that, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Russell was over, and we started that together. I need to rewatch.
Wait,
that.
Was he here? I don't remember if he was here or not. Was he? No.
I'll tell you what, man. Those pain meds they gave me were spot on.
Kicking hard, huh?
Yeah, kicking hard. That's right. But I'm out now. See, got my.
I just noticed.
Yeah, got.
When did you get your cast off?
Last Wednesday. So actually last Thursday. So tomorrow will be a week. So they took it off and gave me a brace, and so I've been wearing the brace on and off, and doing like they give me a whole sheet over here of like mobility exercises to do. They're like, hey, whatever.
They give you a little TheraBand kind of thing.
No, they just gave me some like freewheeling exercises.
The mobility stuff.
Correct. Yeah, and work out that stiffness, which I can still kind of feel in there. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't have as much movement coming back, so you can see like that's like a 45. Yeah, this one's that's still painful, and then I can pull over like this, but not so much. So like that's the limit of what I can do at the moment. So
no arm wrestling.
No, right. No arm wrestling. Still can't supposedly take weight, So like I haven't been on the bicycle or motorcycle or anything. Just kind of playing with my cube. Got my time down to like 44 seconds again. It's still not my best, but it's within a few seconds. So I'm like, okay, so I didn't lose everything.
that's probably your best bet for regaining your mobility. So instead of doing like, exercises, like, well, here, just, do the cue. And in the process, oh my gosh, look at where your wrist is moving and this. And it's like, oh, you actually rehab yourself in a much faster amount of time. No problem.
That's funny. Yeah. Physical therapy 101. You solve your Rubik's Cube.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. Why not?
Makes sense to me.
Yep. Well, so what are your thoughts about anything political the last couple weeks since so the last time we did this was the debate, I guess.
The debate, yeah. So, again, the debate had somewhat different. I don't know. My view on it was different from what the public thought. So, it seemed like the public. I thought Governor Walz was very charming, very, very disarming, kind of peaceful, winsome. But I think from what I've seen, almost everyone thought that his performance was super weak, that he seemed out of his depth. And what's interesting is I forget who it was said that if you want to find out who won a debate or who's winning, is to watch it muted.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because like the words don't matter as much as the pageantry, I guess, or the optics.
Well, your body language, yeah.
Yeah, and so you would see a lot of Walz looking like this, or looking scared or bewildered, even though his responses I thought were fine. And Vance seemed like super in control. And occasionally, there's a few times I noticed at the moment, but they became really good memes where he would look at the camera like, Chad, are you hearing this too? Like, are you
right?
Like, does it sound as stupid to you as it does to me? Like, hey,
right?
Look at this guy, which I think made for really, really fun, fun meme content. And so, yeah, I thought Walz did fine, but I guess I was the only one that thought that, and seemed pretty universally panned by everybody. Like, even I was looking through Blue Sky, which is like the much more left-leaning Twitter, and they were very upset by him. Like, why didn't he hammer Vance on this and that? Like, why didn't he bring this up? And why did he keep saying he agreed with Vance? You made Vance look normal when really he's just
normalized him.
having sex with his couch instead. And like, why didn't he highlight that? And so I think
it wasn't his couch. It was a baseball glove wedged between the couch cushions. Is what I heard. Yeah.
Okay. Whatever.
Let's get specific about our self-gratification mechanisms.
sounds so anatomical. But yeah, it just so I think when that happened, my take watching a lot of the coverage coming out of the campaigns, it seemed to me like there was a pin popping the Harris bubble. To me, so not instantly. It's not like, I guess the bubble popping would be, just cataclysmically over, and it wasn't that, but the cracks started to become very apparent. So there, you had that weird CBS interview with Harris, which she said a lot of like weird stuff that didn't make any sense, and then they went back and.
You're talking about this last 60 Minutes one?
Yeah, they re-edited it to make it look like she was more coherent than she was. And then
that was bizarre. That was bizarre to me. First of all, I didn't think, I've been pretty vocal about how unimpressed I am with her. Anyway, I've been unimpressed with her since, the very beginning, since I saw her in the primary. It's so funny too, because she actually had, back in the day when she ran in, what was that? 2020, I guess.
2019 is, yeah, late 2019 is when she dropped out. So
when she first emerged, conceptually, I was like, that's a strong candidate right there. Former prosecutor,
attorney general,
attorney, AG, senator. Female, Black, Indian. Just all the things, right?
Sure.
And I just was immediately not impressed. Like but anyway, that's neither here nor there. And I've talked with a lot of my friends that are going to vote for her.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, overall, the contention is, look, I mean, I can't vote for Trump, and I'm not going to throw away my vote, so I'm going to vote for her. And totally reasonable. You know, what is, and then, okay, because that's my choice, let me go ahead and you know, give her some breaks on this performance, which
Yeah. Or
I'm
like,
sympathetic.
you know, hand me
Um,
a glass of the Kool-Aid. I'll drink some of the Kool-Aid. Like, I know it's Kool-Aid, but
well, and I mean,
sure, let's go.
to be fair, I mean, Republicans have been doing this for the last
Sure.
8 years, well,
Yeah.
12 years,
No,
you know? Yeah,
I'm not saying it as a criticism. It's just
right,
like, hey, if I'm already voting here, like, let me go ahead and get excited for it.
right.
Why not?
Okay. So I'm down with that. But it is bizarre to me to see people, like, for me, when Trump basically said, okay, I'm not going to sit with 60 Minutes, right? And you know, uh,
He's afraid.
all of the, what's that?
He's afraid of 60 Minutes.
Right, afraid. But to me, it's like, well, he should be, because I mean, look at what they just did in this, editing this interview. I mean, why would I knowingly go into a place that I know they're going to try to make me look bad? Like, I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, I'll do a live broadcast. Okay, yeah, live broadcast, no problem, right? Because that way I know at least you guys won't edit me. But
Yeah,
it's
he did
crazy,
that with Axios when he was president. They were
right?
like, "Yeah, I'll sit down with you, but we're gonna run
But
it
we'll do it
unedited."
live, right?
And like,
And I mean,
okay,
look, yeah, he's no great speaker. I mean, I have shared. I mean, the guy is. Uh, I mean, the king of word salad. So, like, anytime somebody's like, "Oh, that she made a word salad," it's like, well, you would know. You've been eating one for the last 12 years.
I'll have
You
mine
know,
with extra ranch, thank you.
100%. You know, so I mean, you know, it's not like he's a great orator, but on the other hand, it's like, dude, I mean, they are intentionally misrepresenting a position, or intentionally misrepresenting. I mean, that's, to me, that's just you, you know, on both sides. I mean, I've called it out. Both sides, they all do it to each other, right? It's just, I mean, at some point you're kind of like, I mean, why bother? I mean, this is just, I mean, I've
Wow.
done
Yeah.
enough. People know. I mean, they know, they know who I am. You
Yeah.
like it, you don't like it, whatever. And it's basically you know, all these people are like, oh well, you know, they really need to be speaking to those undecided voters. I'm like, dude, there are not any undecided voters. I mean, there are voters like myself who detest each side so much that it's like,
Having a hard time
could
picking.
could, could I vote for either one of these two? And if not, which third party candidate do I want to bless with my irrelevant vote? You know,
Yeah.
and you know,
Stein, Green Party.
yeah. Well, and the competition. I think Joe Scarborough said this the other day, and I thought, dude, you're right on. The competition is really not the other candidate; it's the couch. You know, it's like, I just don't, forget it. I'm not even coming. You know, like, I'm not even going to show up. So I get there's that, but there's no undecided. I mean, nobody's sitting here going, I wonder which would be the better direction for the. I mean, like, you have an opinion about which one of these is going to do a better job. You know, and I think it's ironic because the Liz Cheney vote, right? This Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney thing, right? Of, I disagree completely with everything this candidate is about. There are some policies that I like over here that this other that you know, this candidate has. I don't like any of the policies this candidate has, but this candidate is so unacceptable that I'm going to have to vote for this candidate. You know, to me, that's I don't know, that's a Tony just said, yeah, everybody's in the same predicament. Yeah, I agree, Tony. And it's like, to me, like, the Dick Cheney, she actually, I think, believes what she's saying. Dick Cheney, I know for a fact, like, he's like, look, she's part of the deep state. I'm part of the deep state. She's not even part of the deep state. She's like a AI version of the deep state.
She's
You
willing
know,
to
like,
be controlled by the deep state. So
right, they're
we're
going to
all on
feed
the
her all
same
this
team.
information. What does my programming say? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically it. So, I mean, I get where Dick Cheney's coming from. Like, he's an evil son of a bitch. He's going to vote for these people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, but
you know,
know.
I think you're starting to see like that kind of thing. So like the Dick Cheney thing is starting to really get absorbed by people on the left. And they're like, wow, like, do I really want to be in bed with this group? Like, not all of them are willing to erase the memory of hating Dick Cheney. Um, and then other things like, so here's another just kind of odd one. This one's just random, but in the CBS interview, the interviewer asked Harris if she owned a gun, and she
Right.
said, "Oh, I do."
A
I said, "Well,
Glock.
what?" She goes, "A Glock." Now, interesting thing about that is, Glocks are considered by the state of California
Illegal.
unsafe,
Right.
and you can't own one unless it's an older one that's been grandfathered in. And that she also championed having them banned in the 2 cities that she's lived in California. So that means either she's totally lying, she doesn't have a gun, she doesn't know what they are or whatever, or she does own one in violation of the laws. Like, she wants to be able to own a Glock, but she doesn't want anybody else to be able to own a Glock.
But also, do you even believe that she? I mean, first of all, I mean, I'm not in her gun closet. I have no idea what she has. But it does. First of all, given everything she said and everything she's tried to do, it's highly unlikely to me that she actually owns a gun. To me,
Yeah.
but I mean,
I think it's fine.
well,
I mean, she said multiple times that she was a gun owner, so I don't see any reason to doubt her.
But
I
here's the other thing. It's okay. A Glock. It's like, okay, where did you get that? I mean, like, what would you? I don't know. It's like me
brand
asking,
awareness, like someone saying, "Oh, I'm Smith and
that's what
Wesson guy."
that's what I mean. No, that's what I mean. It's like you asking me what kind of car I have, and I say, oh, I have a Ford. You know, what
Well,
kind of Ford? Well, no,
yeah.
it's a Ford. It's a very nice Ford. It's
So
got 4 doors and a steering wheel.
in her defense here, all Glocks are the same. It's the same gun over and over and over again. And hate me if you want, but you know it's true. Like Gatling Glock, he built perfection. Why would you change anything? So anyway, but the thing is, though, what I find really weird about it is that she's openly admitting that she doesn't
has
think
right.
the rules apply to her. She wants to make rules for you, but those don't apply to her as like the ruling class. Like, I own this cool thing, you can't have it because I'm in charge. And I mean, there's elements.
Saying that. She's just saying that she has a gun and she's fired it to be acceptable to the gun shooting people out there.
I'm not here to take your guns,
I am.
I
How am I going to come take your guns? I have a gun. So
yeah, a gun that she made illegal. Like, it's one of those where it's such an unforced error. Like anybody that's listening to it, I don't know. It's one of those where I think the people who are kind of on the Kamala hype bandwagon. I mean, these are different from the people who hope she wins because they think she's a better choice. That's different. But like the hype bandwagon, they must somehow believe that magically overnight, a politician that everybody, like 70% of the American public, thought was ineffectual, not a good politician, an insurance policy for Biden so that he wouldn't get amendmented out, because then you'd wind up with her as president. It's like, I win, checkmate. That
checkmate.
Magically, in the course of like a week, she becomes the it girl that is like so inspiring and can connect with voters, and is bringing that brat energy and all this other stuff. And it's like, well, that's just a really weird thing to believe.
You just sound jealous, man. You just sound jealous. You wish your candidate was that popular.
But that's I think what we're starting, there's going to be this moment where we sort of crest the hype train. Again, this is different from the people that are voting because they just think she's a better option. But you crest that hype train, and then it's like the realization sets in. It's like, wow, you can't talk without a teleprompter. She doesn't seem to have any views or beliefs. She switches accents all the time based on who she's talking to. Like, there's not a very good politician, not very likable. And so I think you're going to start to see this.
Okay, but compared to what, right? So I mean, like more. I mean, she's more likable than Trump, don't you think? I mean, the only people that say they like Trump are people that have met Trump. Now, I would gladly concede. I would gladly concede that that is the more accurate measure of the guy, right? Like I mean, you could like me or hate me, but if you hung out with me, I think you'd like me, right? And
Well,
I
the
could say
people that hung out with you would know you better than anybody else.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And there's no argument. Everybody says, dude, Trump's super likable. He's very charming after they meet him, right? It's almost like, oh man, I was ready to hate this guy, but then I met him and he's so charming, etc. Fine, right? I don't know what people say after they meet Kamala. I don't have enough data on that. But she does present a lot better because she's not out to try to like kick everybody in the privates. And I mean, it continually makes these ridiculous statements that even people who are like, okay, for example, myself, I can't get on board with the censorship stuff. I cannot get on board with the stuff the grooming stuff that they're doing with the kids in the school. I can't. I mean, that's completely obvious what's happening. I can't get them on board with this wide open immigration policy. There's so many different things that are going as a liberal that are going on the left, and I'm like, bro, like you've jumped the shark. I mean, I can't get on board with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so if I was going to go over here and consider what's going on over here, it's like every day there's something else that he's out there saying that's particularly designed to infuriate somebody. And some of it is like, okay, I can pass it off as trolling. Okay, maybe he's just trolling people. Okay, but I mean, like, you're the leader of the free world. At some point, like, you know, and I mean, for me to expect him to do something different after, I mean, he's been in public view now when did he come out with the birther stuff with Obama? That was in 16 or 14 or whatever it was.
Well, he'd been commenting on politics for long before that too. So I mean, he'd been in the public eye.
I didn't have any problem with most of the stuff that he had said before he started coming out with the birther stuff. I mean, you go back and look at older interviews. I mean, he was a serious person. He had serious views. I mean, I don't agree with extreme protectionist, trade policy, let's say. I mean, but that's my opinion. I'm not in charge of anything. So, I mean, whatever. On the flip side, and Amber, I see your comments, so we're gonna address these here in a second. So I love you. I'm glad you're watching. So okay, that's up for debate, right? But like and you could make the argument that, okay, well, I mean, the reason he rocketed to such popularity is he was willing to say these incendiary things that a lot of people were feeling and thinking. And so people are, oh, finally, somebody's willing to say what I've been feeling for a long time. Okay, I get that. And as a marketing strategy, I respect it. On the flip side, it does appeal to something darker in human nature that maybe would be best left inside the mason jar, So I don't know.
Let's not let that out. Right?
What are your thoughts there,
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I mean, I'm making these comments not as comparisons.
But I mean, that's what it is. It is a comparison.
Well,
and I mean, to just say, oh, well, here's my take on this without taking into account, okay, well, unfortunately, we do have a binary situation here. So
yeah,
relative to what?
So let's put it this way. Like, I think like the difference between, like, if we were talking about Hillary versus Trump, and Hillary, 2016 Hillary, I'm a fan of. Not a fan of her now. Some of her stances on censorship I find very difficult to square with the First Amendment.
Me too. John Kerry saying, yeah, the big problem with ours is we have a First Amendment. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, crazy but 2016 Hillary, I have very different views on, and her campaign style. And so, like, if you watch the debate between Hillary and Trump, and I think you have sort of like, well, we've got someone with a lot of experience who's been in and out of government in a lot of different ways, worked in private sector as a lawyer, has done all these things, has an interesting checkered past, but one that I think brings some value there. and also you would get she could string sentences together. She would talk very
More
persuasively.
than that, I mean, yeah, she's eloquent.
She was
Obviously,
very
logical.
eloquent.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you could pick like, continuity of Obama with experienced leadership, little shadiness, but not that much.
Again, compared to what?
Compared to what, right? Or you could have the guy who, says a lot of crazy stuff and interrupts people all the time, and you try to diagram his sentences, and it's like, I don't know, this winds up looking like a circle with like stuff coming out of it. Like what is he even saying?
Well,
what's even happening?
He's advocating for a religious test for immigration. He was
all sorts of crazy stuff. All sorts of crazy stuff. So you look at that and you're like, okay, wow, this is big contrast. Like, wow, big difference. If you're looking at Harris versus Trump, you've got like, well, let's see, word salad, flip flop, right? You can just kind of go down the list and you're like, well, this one seems really dishonest. This one also seems really dishonest. So, okay, so I'm not going to get, so some of the things that I would really like, I would love to have, an inspiring orator, someone who could bring the country together through the force of their personality. Lots of things. Not going to get any.
Or how about just somebody that doesn't want to drive it into a ditch? I mean, that would be
not going to get that either.
Yeah.
Not going to get that either. So it's like, okay, if I'm not going to get any of those things, and I say, well, what actually does separate them? And I can look at some policy stuff. I can look at the people that endorse them. Some of the things that I care about. So like currency, that's not going to change it with either one. War might actually be an interesting difference. Regulatory capture might be an interesting difference. Right. So I can go through and look at those interesting differences. But if I was thinking to myself like, oh man, I get to pick.
Both of them are going to add probably $7
billions of dollars to the deficit.
I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy that you don't even have a choice about, here's somebody that might be somewhat responsible with the financial policy. I mean, it's crazy.
I get that. Well, I mean, it's like in 2008, hoping you could vote for an anti-war candidate. And it's like, McCain or Obama. Obama.
Well, and here's the other thing that
a lot of us thought he was an anti-war candidate, but he's not.
Here's the other thing. Here's the other thing that's just mind-boggling. So, for example, one of the kind of excuses that I was kind of giving myself is like, okay, well, maybe I could vote for Kamala because she's not Biden. I mean, we're these guys are trying to unfairly kind of like bolt all these like, I mean, who cannot look and say, okay, well, Biden was a disaster on the border. If you can't say that, then you just don't have your eyeballs open. I mean, you had, I mean, even the guy on 60 Minutes went after like 2 or 3 times on that. Dude, you had a quadrupled the amount of illegal immigration into the country. We're not even talking about asylum.
Those are your own numbers.
Those are your numbers, right?
Yeah.
And so
we're just believing you.
And then she's like, we are making some changes and stuff like. Okay, even if I say, okay, let's give her a pass on all that because she would probably do something totally different. Because I want to believe that. Let's say, right? I want to believe.
I want to believe
it. So I'm gonna give it. Well, then she's on The View a couple days ago. And which is not an unfriendly. I mean, The View is. I mean, that's her platform. And they like, okay. And I can't remember the lady. She goes, well, what would you do differently? First, she was like, well, what did you love about the way Biden ran the country, whatever? And I said, well, what would you do differently? Is there anything that you would do differently other than what Biden has done? She goes, no, I can't really think of anything. Okay, well, now you said it. I mean, that's not anybody saddling you with it. I mean, either she doesn't have any idea what she would have done differently. Maybe, and I mean, again, this is me trying to like, okay, if I could twist myself into a pretzel and like try to like come up with a reason that I could
make it work. Okay,
I want to make this work, man. I really want to be, and it's like, you won't even take a freebie that's thrown because
no.
To me, it is just, I don't know. I don't,
well,
I mean, you could say maybe it's a terrible candidate. Maybe the adults are in the room who just vote her in and, we got to get rid of the bad, the bad dude and Hitler or whatever. I mean, like, dude, and that's another thing. dude, the comparisons with Hitler, I mean, they are in full force now. And
I think there's plenty of people who would vote for Hitler to save America from Trump.
from Trump, I mean, I don't know. Nobody's put that out there, but I just, to me,
I
it's
bet
like,
they would.
dude,
At least he's not this guy.
Hitler murdered 6 million Jews. I think that's a low number. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, Hitler is a megalomaniac that invaded all these countries. What are the things that Trump has done that do that? Like, I guess he made some comment over the weekend where it was like, or the last couple of days where it was like, oh, we're genetic. We got a lot of bad genes. That's what he said. We got a lot of bad genes coming into the country, right? It's like, oh, it's such a racist thing to say, which it is a racist thing to say. I'm gonna see. Here's what I'm gonna say. It is a racist thing to say. I can't believe that he said it. Right? It is outrageous that he said that. And there's no comparison to Hitler. Like, I mean, it is like, come on, like, and meanwhile, you've got for whatever reason, and I don't understand. I would love to have. I would invite any person of color. I mean, like, we're both kind of half of color. You know, Dad's from the Middle East, but whatever. I'm not a person of color. I didn't grow up as a black person. But help me understand what this expectation of, well, we can't expect, you know, black people to do well in math, you know, like math is racist, you know, because we can't have these tests because black people do worse on these tests statistically, so therefore they're racist tests. We can't expect people of color to get ID cards, you know, because, I mean, we all know they can't do that. It's like, how is that not racist? I mean, to me, that is the essence of racism. Like, I mean, and maybe ID cards aren't a good idea for any other number of reasons. Maybe math tests are a bad idea for any number of reasons. I don't know. Okay, I'm not an educational professional, but saying that this group of people statistically is not able to go and do these things, it's, how is that not racist? I mean, that is racist.
Are you seriously asking this question?
I'm just saying, if you're,
because if so, I do have an explanation for you.
Okay, we'll nominate you as a person of color to answer.
No. Well, so here's the explanation. Here's why those arguments are used, right? If you were to use the argument and say, well, look, the reason why is because they are inferior, and the math test proves it, and so we have to remove the math test to take away the evidence, right, of racial superiority or something. That is not what's going on. A lot of it has to do with educational funding. So money gets poured in, not just public school money, but like, think of tutors, after school programs, soft money from PTA associations, all that stuff, right? So money flows into education. It tends statistically to favor middle class and up white people, tends to. And so you get higher educational,
and Indians somehow.
Yes. So you have educational outcomes that reflect that. So then when you measure for those educational outcomes, you're not measuring aptitude, you're measuring who got the most resources put towards
the grass
them.
is greener because it's watered back more.
Exactly. So they're like, look, if we're putting a math here as your test for getting in school, what I'm really doing is I'm saying no poor people allowed. And because currently there's a disproportionately high number, proportionally there's more poor people of color than white people, then we wind up excluding black people as a result.
I appreciate that dynamic, but isn't the solution then to not eliminate the testing that shows the disparity of outcome, but instead invest in better outcomes? Like,
oh, well, that would be my preference. Like, let's bring everybody up, but that requires money. And when you have like, hey, let's redirect some of the money from the property taxes in the nice neighborhood to the educational system in the not nice neighborhood, people in the nice neighborhood say no. Like, we moved to this district so that our schools
will be
Well,
good.
but you're talking about a
Cetera.
uniquely kind of Texas thing there, because we don't have state income tax here, and so the funding for the education system is solely through property taxes. So I mean, that's
But
why
again,
that is.
But again, think about all the like non-tax money that goes into school. Right? Think of tutoring. Think of the ability, like for some of people in your family to only work part-time, and when the kids are home, they're home, and they can help them with homework and stuff like that. Like that kind of stuff that would be like privilege, we might say. So that's the explanation. Like I said, I'm not advocating for this. It's just that's
look,
why.
So the way you explain it, and the way it can be explained, I don't just mean like to give you kudos, like you have the magical words, but I mean there is a way to frame there's a way to frame these things that motivates action and solutions, right? There's also a way to frame these things that is designed to motivate outrage, and class division, et cetera. And I just, to me, I remember when, not to look wistfully back at the George W. Bush years, because I don't, but I mean, I remember the way he would language things like these, the No Child Left Behind Act, things like that. But, and he would say, the soft bigotry of low expectation. I remember when he said that, and I mean, obviously he didn't write that, somebody wrote that for him, but I mean, somebody with some language skills, but that is excellent to me. It's like, look, I mean, why would we say that it's okay to have these kind of results, rather than say, look, and again, this is all a game of comparison, right? So it is very easy to zoom out and see, okay, what is the education level by, say math proficiency, reading proficiency, et cetera, of children in America, and what is the average proficiency of people, say, in China or Finland or Spain or whatever the case may be. There's a ranking system, and I mean, we're nowhere near the top. So to think like, oh, we need to actually eliminate the measurement criteria because it's racist is like that is itself. I mean, in fact, if they implemented that, that would actually be racist, because then all you're doing is you're giving a leg up to the people who already have the advantages, the privileges.
Sure.
Do you agree?
And,
yeah.
And I don't want to, like, I mean, you do have some like real crackpots out there that will say things like, I remember there was one, was it Harvard had put it out? It was an Ivy League institution, but it was like, signs of white supremacy. And, one of the things on it was insisting that people are on time.
Yeah, punctuality is racist.
That's, or
crazy.
focus on achievement. Focus on that is white supremacy and so on. And it's like, oh, okay, those people are just crazy, right? They're like, they actually have
so
like,
look, so Iranians, right? We are notoriously late, right?
Yes.
In fact, I think it is almost rude to show up any earlier than 30 minutes late for anything.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's a cultural thing, right? And I my black friends educate me all the time about CPT, right? You got to account for CPT, colored people time, and they can say it. I can't say it, but I just did say it. But I borrowed it. It's not me. And they'll say, "Oh, it's CPT," right? So therefore,
that's amateur numbers in comparison with Iranian time.
Right. I was like, dude, you're playing in the minor leagues, dude. I'm Iranian. I may show up a week later and say,
"Where's
early? I'm so sorry, I'm so early." Yeah. But that also being said, punctuality is how the world turns, bro. Like, I mean, it is. I was watching. Gosh, what movie was I watching? There's a James Clavell. He wrote Shogun. I think you and I watched that together. So he's got another book called Taipan, which is the story of the founding of Hong Kong. It's a great novel.
Oh.
And there's a series that was put out back in the 80s. Pierce Brosnan is the title character. It's like a four-part miniseries. Yeah, you're right, Am. Yeah, Iranian time. That's right, man. Persian time. But there was this one scene. I just watched it, and so on the plane, and so there was this one scene where the guy comes in and he's literally 2 minutes late, and the Taipan is like, if you're late again, you know, you're going to be terminated. He's like, I was 2 minutes late. He goes, the fact that you're arguing about this is like even making me more insane, right? Like you're late, own it, you know, 2 minutes is late, you know, you were either on time or you weren't. It's very binary. The lights are on or off. You're pregnant or you're not pregnant. I mean, whatever the case may be, right?
Well, I think also something like punctuality or that concept of being late really is about the concept of the missed opportunity. So, like, I have many students this morning who were late to my first class. It's 10 a.m., whatever, they were caught in traffic, something happened. So I don't judge them or whatever because I don't have to. The stuff that we talked about for the first 10 minutes of class was actually super important. And it's not that I'm going to hold it over them. It's just they missed the opportunity. So hopefully they get notes from somebody else and it doesn't hurt them. But it's like if your lifestyle is set up to where you're constantly missing your opportunities, then it's like, oh, that shouldn't be encouraged. If we want people to live successful lives that they would consider successful, probably they should not be missing their opportunities.
Well, and it's funny, you know, like
it's not that complicated.
I host a training series for our group of agents, and I always start right on time. I mean, so like when the clock hits, we're going, you know. And I told and I always tell like the guests and everything when they're coming on, I'm like, hey, just don't, you know, like we're starting when it's time, you know, and you know, please be early, right? But actually, somebody had reached out to me several months ago. They were like, hey, you know, it'd be better if you know, kind of took the first, you know, 4 or 5 minutes just to kind of like, you know, ease into things, you know, get people a chance to get on. I'm like, they had a chance to get on. I mean, the meeting starts at whatever time it is. It's a freaking Zoom meeting. Everybody has. I'm literally not even asking them to leave their house. They can tune in from their phone. You know, like I mean, this is the easiest possible thing in the world. We're starting on time, and it's I'm not even trying to be. I used to be awful at this. I mean, again, like I grew up. I mean, I was the first person to give an excuse for why, you know, I was late. It was only a few minutes. Doesn't really matter. Whatever. And I finally I went to some, like, I can't remember what it was. It was some seminar, a landmark thing actually, and they made a big deal about punctuality, and I hated it. I had kind of this huge argument with the instructor, of course, which is by design.
Yeah, it's meant to infuriate you, so you kind of confront your own.
So you surface it, and it was like, and this was years ago, and it was like, look, I mean, I just kind of came face to face with the fact that I thought I was the most important person in the world, and that's really what it is. I mean, it's about a complete narcissism that you completely disrespect. I mean, so you're operating in your own world, and nobody else matters. Is really what that says, and you know, it's funny. Amber was commenting a couple of times. She's a old dear friend of mine from college, but she was commenting a couple of times. Well, that's not. I'm sure that's not what she meant, and she probably didn't. And I didn't mean to disrespect everybody's time. That's not what I was trying to do. I'm like, how can I disrespect everybody's time that I know I'm going to be late? It wasn't that. It was just completely subconscious, like just way of being that, you know, I'll get there when I get there, and they can deal with it, you know. And that
they did. They started without you.
They started without me, and yeah. Either it's actually two things at the same time, which are kind of, they're contradictory, but they can be true at the same time. One is that you don't have to, like, you can't tell me what to do. I'll show up when I want, right? And also this other thing of like, I don't matter that much, right? Like oh, they won't even notice that I'm not there. It's not that, you know, it's not that big of a deal if I'm missing. Because they'll carry on, right? And so it's just, either way, it's just complete lack of responsibility and accountability, which you know, not very popular words out there, but anyway, yeah. See, Amber says that, yeah, my concept too, Am. So
hey, did we get to all the questions that were in the comments?
So Amber had said, and I did want to hit this because you know, she was saying that you sounded kind of condescending talking about Harriet, and you did. But I did too, and I don't care. I am condescending about her. I am condescending about Trump. I am condescending about I'm completely blown. I'm just speaking for myself. I'm completely blown away that in a country as great as ours, in a system as great as ours, that these are the options that we're presented with. I'm completely, anyway. If you, but you can speak for yourself.
They're the best we got, man. This is their
Yeah.
best and brightest.
Well, dude, I mean,
No,
Mark Cuban was on a. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So the condescending thing, I'm assuming that was, I'm guessing that was about when I was talking about what a bad candidate Harris is.
Right.
And I think we have a lot of evidence for that. Like, I don't think I'm not saying anything like original or unusual. Her candidacy in 2019 for the 2020 election was so bad that she, even though she was able to get a lot of donor money, like she's kind of like the dream candidate if you're a Democrat donor, but she was just unable to connect.
She checks all the boxes. I mean,
Oh yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And like if it was like a casting call in her audition, I mean, it's perfect. And sometimes those casting calls work really well. So like AOC is an example of a casting call that was super successful, and she was able to really leverage that into a brand. And
yeah,
it's
she's done
great.
well for herself. Yep.
Yeah. Harris just was not able to do that, and actually had to withdraw from the race before a single vote was even cast, just because she wasn't able to really make it on the national stage. So that's fine. I mean, that's the thing. It's like you can be a effective public servant and not be able to win the hearts and minds of the voters. Like that's not a crime.
Exactly.
But I think
witness Hillary Clinton, for example, who I think is probably one of the most competent people to ever run for office. I mean, whether you agree or disagree, I mean, dude's qualified out the wazoo.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
just couldn't get people to buy into her. So
yeah, and I think the reason that a lot of people didn't like Harris was that she seemed empty. And I think especially during the debates in 2019, when you would see her up against other politicians who could speak with real passion, it was very evident that people just had this reaction to her like, this is an act, and it's not even a very good act. It's just not, it didn't work. And so it was kind of surprising when she was chosen as the vice president. It was definitely one of those where it was kind of the same kind of box checking exercise, which Biden himself said. So, I mean, I'm not saying anything, strange or unusual. So having her then selected by probably the same group that forced Biden to withdraw from the race, if you think about it as like pulling this, whoever's pulling Biden's strings are also going to be the people pulling Harris's strings, which if you like how that's worked, and there are plenty of people that do. So, I mean, this is not if you're looking at it, you're like, hey, things have gone really well for me. I like this direction of this. I like the direction of that. To have more, let's keep going. Then the same people that are in charge now, when they say like the White House has clarified or the White House said, the same people will be in charge if Harris is president. And so you can, I think, have kind of a guaranteed continuity of government with that, which, again, for a lot of people, that is a selling point.
And that may be worth voting for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so that's candidate agnostic. That's just,
right. But I think in this case, it's kind of, I think, especially powerful with her, where it makes, I've kind of stopped tuning into any interviews with her or whatever, because it really is, this is like a candidate optional.
It's more fun to watch how they're cut anyway afterwards.
Campaign. Yeah. Well, but the thing is that like it doesn't matter. Like they could have picked anybody, because no one really is expecting her to be in charge of anything. It'll be, they'll bring her out to give teleprompted remarks. Unlike Biden, who often tries to say things on his own, she will read from the teleprompter as she normally has done. So, and then they'll give her things to sign, and she'll sign them, and it'll be great. It'll be like, so if you're like, hey, this is what I want, I mean, you could pick anybody to do that job.
Did you see the rally she did the other day where her teleprompter went out?
Yeah.
She could talk. I was like, oh, wow.
Didn't know what to say. No. There was a fun Saturday Night Live skit with that, where the people on the news, the teleprompter stopped, and like it devolved into like Lord of the Flies, and they're like, killing each other because when will
Right.
the teleprompter speak to us again? Kind of
Well,
thing.
dude, it's
Um,
so funny because my friends that are Republicans, they're like, well, look at Trump. He doesn't even need a teleprompter. I was like, I promise you, dude, if you
No,
were
he
part
needs
of
it.
his campaign staff, you would be begging him, please
Please.
use the teleprompter.
Use the-
Why won't this
Yeah.
guy stay on script?
Yeah. So I think
We have opposite problems. Yeah.
I think what's difficult when I talk to a lot of people about this stuff, and I'll say these things. There's like this because we live in such a polarized time that there's this assumption that because I've said things that are not complimentary of Harris, that must mean that I think she's probably evil, and that Trump is God's chosen man to lead America as the New Jerusalem. And it's like,
Right,
yeah,
right.
no, I don't think any of that stuff. And I think it's totally rational to vote for Harris if you like the people that are in charge now. Like if you're like, let's have more Secretary Blinken, let's have more Lloyd Austin. I like Mayorkas as
Well, or I would say too, even again, because it's a comparison thing. So I mean, if
Mhm.
we as a voting bloc of voters put Trump back in, which I just can't even believe that this guy is getting a second shot at this anyway. But like, whatever. I mean, it's just. I mean, at this point, it's just like, okay, well, I'm in the middle of a Seinfeld episode. So if he goes back in, then you can be prepared for more of that. And so maybe that's what you prefer, And so I think that's it's not even, do you like the direction that this is going? Do you want to go back to that? And I mean, some people would say, well, I mean, the economy, this and that and the other, all of which I agree, the economy was better. But I don't think really, yes, he had some impact over that. There is some energy. It's almost like how when Reagan took over from Carter, before even any policies were in place, the mood of the country had shifted, right? To a more optimistic mood. And because of that,
Good times are coming.
Good times are coming, and people invest all these different things, and so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
And there was an element of that. I'll give him credit for that, up to a point, right? But it's hard for me to go back and go, okay, well, knowing everything that we know now, do we really think that mood is the mood that's going to return? Or because I don't really know that that's a high probability prediction. It's almost like going. You date a girl, you break up with them, or they break up with you, or whatever the case may be. And here you are months later, maybe years later, and all you can remember are just the good times that you had together. Man, why didn't that work out? I mean, I have friends of mine. In fact, I'm thinking two different friends who literally married somebody, got divorced, and then remarried that person again. And then, of course, got divorced again. Right? It's like, because I remember there was a reason that we got divorced the first time. So I just think that oh, I remember what it is
now there it was.
So I don't know.
Yeah, the way I see it, like if you were kind of putting my encapsulation of what the race is about, I think right now the strongest reason to vote for Harris is the reasons is you have sort of more or less, I know it's a bad word, but like you have more or less neocon leanings about American military presence. So you're like, we need to get democracy pushed out there. And so we need to expand NATO. We need to do all these things, right? So if you have kind of neocon leanings there, if you are, if you would like to do more antitrust investigations and prosecutions against large tech companies, which Biden White House has been extraordinarily diligent about, which I'm in favor of, by the way. So this would be a reason that would be close to my heart to vote for Harris. That will continue, right? Everything will continue. If you think that we need more immigration as much as possible, as quickly as possible, that really is our strength. And no human is illegal. Borders are imaginary. We need to bring people in to the American dream, and this is the way to do it. I think that would be a great reason. And also, if you're very keen, not on like stopping a national or federal abortion ban kind of thing, which I don't think anybody's interested in doing. But if you wanted to say make a push for a federal abortion guarantee, Now, you might not be able to pass it as a law, but in the same way that you're able to do things like tie highway funding to having the drinking age be 21, right? So maybe we could tie funding for this or that in a way to harmonize expanded access to abortion, right? So I think that would be the kind of thing that you might see under a Harris presidency. If those are things that really mattered to you, those would be, I think, the best case. Don't do it because she's an inspiring figure, because she's not. But like, do it because those are the things that you think would be valuable. So on the other side, for Trump, again, don't vote because he's an inspiring figure, because like, oh my gosh, if you would like, so under either one, there's going to be more gun regulations. And Trump was Trump banned bump stocks, for example. Like, so, I mean, on his first one. Given the fact that he was almost killed now twice with AR-15, I would expect under Trump some gun regulations, but probably not as much as under Harris. So if you wanted less gun regulation, you could go with Trump. You probably would vote for him if you were against regulatory capture of the FDA, EPA, and the DoD. So like if you want to try to unwind some of the endless wars, regime change wars kind of stuff, you would vote for Trump. And if you wanted to restart American industry primarily through protectionism, and if you thought that was a good play, then I think Trump is your guy for that. Some of the other stuff on the edges, like, deport everybody kind of stuff, like, I don't think any of that. I mean, he didn't do it the first time. Like, maybe the wall gets built, but it looks like it's going to get built anyway. Biden Harris is working on it now. So
they're absolutely going to deport people. I mean, I was listening.
Well, yes, there will be, but like in terms of like deport everybody kind of stuff. So I think.
Well, so I was listening to JD Vance was on a podcast last week or whatever, and he explained exactly how it would be done. One thing I will give Vance, and I will give Walls as well, is that they are very articulate about how to. I mean, they're like, okay, yeah, here's how we would do that. Both of them, very kind of like interesting that you guys are second instead of what we should. You guys did a switcheroo. Maybe we could do a switcheroo. Anyway, yeah.
Wouldn't be so bad.
But he was like, yeah, well, how are you going to deport, 12 million people, whatever the number is, right? 20 million. He's like, yeah, he goes, it's kind of like, this question is almost like, let's say I'm eating lunch and you look and you're like, dude, how are you going to eat that whole sandwich? I mean, it's this big and your mouth is this big, he's like, well, you eat one bite at a time and eventually the sandwich is gone. And he's like, the first bite of the sandwich is going to be picking up people that are already getting picked up for committing crimes. And when you check their documentation, they don't have it. Oh, well, that's an easy one. Out you go, and
you're already arrested. So
you're already arrested. This would be super easy. Instead of sending you to this prison, we send you back to where you came from. Or whatever the case may be. I'm sure it's more complicated than that. But, some of these things are very common sense things that you're kind of like, okay, well, I mean, I am down to get, I'm not saying, I mean, there's some lines that I'm like, okay, well, I'm not down with this. And so I am down with like, okay, here's the spectrum of the problem. I'm down with addressing this piece of it, but not this piece of it, let's say. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, well, it seems like the argument seems to be, well, if you let these people handle it on whichever side, right, they're going to go to this, right? When it's like, well, dude, I mean, in order to get there, you got to start somewhere. And I am comfortable with this first level.
Yeah.
And I think both sides have those, right? I mean, both sides have those elements where you're like, I don't, yes, I get the whole slippery slope thing on whatever issue it is, right? I get whatever slippery slope argument you're making. And I do think we can do this, right? And that's around, I mean, whether it's, whether it's immigration deporting, whether it's these, I'm not saying free speech in terms of like free speech, but I mean, there are some, malicious types of misinformation that should, I mean, it's so interesting. We're talking about free speech,
like fraud's illegal.
Or like, look, an individual has the right to say whatever they want. Okay. I have the right to say whatever I want. You have the right to say whatever you want. That's free speech, right? The corporations are not people. Okay, they're a group of people, but it is that corporations are not people. They don't have free speech right. Corporation does not have free speech right. A person has free speech right.
You're talking
right?
about campaign finance,
or bots, right? Look, a human being has the right to go on whatever platform and say whatever they want, right? But I do not have the right to mechanize an army of millions of bots to go spread whatever my message is, whether you agree with that message or not. And
why not?
But because that's not free speech. That is.
How is that different from? I mean, if I use a printing press and I create a whole bunch of copies of what I wanted to say, and I distribute them, I just start throwing them out of my car window.
And they already you can't do that because that's littering, right?
Well, okay, so, obviously not.
Okay,
so
but you can't litter. You can't paper a grocery store parking lot. I mean, people do, but they get right. So there are restrictions on speech. And there are restrictions on, nobody's saying that you can't stand up and say whatever you want. Nobody's saying you can't get online and post whatever you want, but you can't mechanize these bot armies and push out whatever your point of view is. Like, it's not that to me, that is, and hey, we can have a debate about it, but I would say it's definitely up for debate. It's not like, I have a constitutionally protected amendment
can I say that
bot armies or litter my publication everywhere.
What's your
free speech.
But what you're describing though, what you're describing is something more like content moderation, right? So if a social media site said, "Hey, we don't want bots. If we find out you're a bot, we'll get rid of you. If we find out that you're coordinating bots, we'll ban your IP.
Right.
We just don't want bots." They're like, "Okay, fine."
And also, I would have no case to say, "Oh, my freedom of speech is being violated." Or if the government came and put pressure on some social media platform to curtail the use of bots, like that is not the same as curtailing free speech.
Right. Now, if they said something like, "Well, look, the bots are fine, but we just don't want bots that are in favor of this particular point of view."
Well, that's horseshit. Pardon me.
And if you said, "Well, okay,"
now I have to put my R rating on this podcast.
Well, no, because it's like, if that's content moderation choice and it's transparent, it's like, Mastodon does this. Mastodon's like, "Yeah, we don't want this. We're like, no Nazis allowed." Like, what are Nazis? Anything the Republican Party says is Nazism. So it's like, okay, no, you're not allowed to say Republican stuff on Mastodon, and that's fine. But that's fine.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
That's fine. To me, that's fine, because that's them deciding their own content moderation on their own platform. And it's, like I said, it's transparent. They tell you that, that signing up. On the other hand, if it was, say, Homeland Security contacted Mastodon and they were like, we're concerned that you're allowing these people to talk, and we need you to remove them, even though what they're saying is not illegal. You don't want to remove them, you kind of don't care, but we want you to remove them. But also, we don't want anyone to know that we've told you to remove them. That's where I draw the line.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. I think you and I may be in violent agreement on that one. Amber was just pointing out Yuval Noah Harari, the guy who wrote *Sapiens*. He was on Bill Maher the other day, and he was talking about how also AI, for example, like AI is not free speech. That's a computer program, and so it is totally fine to like curtail or modify or change or shift, what AI says. AI does not think for itself, does not have the same rights as human beings, right?
So here's that's false, and here's why. AI is code, and code is protected under the First Amendment.
The code written by code is protected by the First Amendment.
Code. So code, like, for if
the way I understand that, because I remember that this case was about 3D printing a gun, right? Or I can't remember what it was, but it's like, these are the instructions to build a pipe bomb or some illegal thing. It's like, well, look, the instructions are free speech, right?
Yeah. Well, because right. So like, I could publish the code right, for
get
how
that.
to run
But
an AI in a book
but-
as
what AI
protected.
But what Harari is saying is, well, I'd be curious your thoughts. And again, this isn't codified into law. Harari is just he was making this case, which I do agree with on its face, and
Okay.
prove me wrong, right? Uh, is
Prove me wrong.
prove me wrong? Yeah, is that look again? These rights that are that we have, like for example, free speech is one of those rights that is. I mean, even Kerry said the other day, he was like, yeah, one of the big, which I can't, it's so funny. I mean, John Kerry used to be um, the paragon of free speech. I mean, this guy came back from the Vietnam War and spoke out in front of Congress, while protests are going on. Like, obviously, these people are protesting their government. It's not about building mass consensus. It's about speaking truth to power, right? And I mean, this guy like stood up for not only his right to be heard, but for all of the soldiers that were sent over there. So like, which I respect deeply, right? And now this same guy is saying that the First Amendment is what makes it problematic that we're going to be able to achieve consensus. Like that, the problem that we have in achieving consensus around these issues is
People are allowed to say speak their mind.
the First Amendment. If people can, so which I'm like, I can't, I just can't.
Yeah.
It makes me want to punch a clown. I just is there a clown?
So here's the thing with AI. I think there's a
let me just finish
Yeah,
this
go
point. Yeah, real
ahead,
briefly.
sure, yeah.
So
Yeah.
what he was saying is, look, this is it's enshrined in our Constitution. We all agree it is a right, and it is actually, like, I would argue, like, with not the foundational right of being an American. However, it belongs to humans, right? It is not. So again, about bots, about AI, about these different things that we're creating, and yes, they do not have. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the content they create. It just, they don't have the same rights in terms of rights that a human being has. And of course, some of this stuff still is left to be adjudicated. I don't think I've seen a case actually bubble up around this content, but I'd be curious to hear your take. What's your perspective?
So there's a sentience dilemma that I think that this idea of AI can't have free speech or whatever is going to fail on this dilemma. So
doesn't have the absolute right to it like a human being does.
Right. So here's how it works. So let's say, AI is either a mere mechanism or it's sentient.
Now, I think there's many levels in between.
Well, you could say partially sentient, somewhat sentient.
It's certainly not just a tool. You could classify it as an agent, right? So in the same way, I could assign a property agent to manage my property for me, but he doesn't own my property. I'm appointing him as my agent.
Think of it like this. So I run the LLM, the large language models, on my own hardware. So it's kind of demystified for me because I can actually run the things and see how they work and see how the output changes when I do different stuff with the prompting. And I'm not using something that is designed to sort of strip all that away and make it look like it's magical, right? So you've
seen behind the curtain, man. You've seen the wizard.
And the technology is very impressive, but it's like text goes in. So in the case of a language model, text goes in, goes through a very complicated algorithm, text comes out. Okay. Now, what happens in between the text going in and text going out, you have to decide, is what it's doing just math, or does it have its own mind? Now, my view is that it does not have its own mind, but that's not because I don't think it can. The technology, the way it works right now, that is clearly not what's going on.
And we're not even talking about what it's able to do. We're saying legally, how is it seen? Since we're the ones that make the laws, we get to decide. So, are we giving this the benefit of the doubt that it's sentient?
So here's the thing. If it is, let's say it is sentient. Let's just say you see the technology and you're like, I don't see any
different conclusion. Yeah,
I don't see any difference between that and like the neurons firing my brain. I mean, that's a mechanism. Text goes in, text comes out. Like, what's the difference? Maybe mine's more complicated than that one, but it's the same basic principle. And so then you would have to argue that we should withhold freedom of speech from sentient beings. That's like,
right, but you wouldn't argue that.
I'm not arguing that. You're not arguing that. That's a weird thing to argue. Right?
Well, that's what Harari is saying.
Right. Now, on the other hand, if you say, well, no, see, look, they're not sentient. They don't have mind. It's just a mechanism. And so it doesn't have free speech because it's not a participant in the human community. Right. So then you say, okay, all right, that's fine. So it doesn't have free speech, but I have free speech. And so in the same way that, like, let's say it was a much less complicated one, like let's say instead of this thing with, the ones and zeros, it was done with gears, and like words fell out of a typesetting machine in order, and it didn't produce very nice sentences, but like you could put stuff in, you could watch the gears. It's like one of those like a fancy abacus or something. You could watch the stuff in and like some words fall out the bottom. Well, it's like, okay, I made the machine, I'm using the machine, I'm putting the stuff in it, I'm operating it. The output then is my freedom of speech.
Yes. So, but I think we're saying the same thing. If I go to ChatGPT and I ask it for whatever, let's say I'm having an argument with Amber here, right? So Amber and I are online, we're having an argument, but she's schooling me and I'm just out of my league. And so, which would probably be the case, Amber. So I go to ChatGPT, I'm like, give me an argument to beat this argument, right? And then I just copy paste exactly what it says and send it back to her, right? That at the time that I take that content and then communicate it, that's no longer AI speech, that's my speech. And it's my right to speak those words, just as it's my right to quote Herman Melville or the Bible or anything else, right? It does, right? So Amber says, thanks, but no. I have the right to quote anybody that I want, and I have also the right to not give it up for attribution. And maybe you catch me, maybe you don't, right? As Biden got caught back in the 80s, right? Like, oh, you plagiarized that whole speech. Okay, that's still my right to free speech. What Harari is talking about, I think you should go watch the conversation maybe, because what he's talking about is just letting an AI bot, for example, go out there and just and say whatever it wants. I can say whatever I want.
Post on Twitter, basically,
by itself, right? And
but can you explain?
There is no right, even under current law. And let's see how it's adjudicated. But I mean, there is no right for that bot to go out there and say whatever it does.
But wait, when you say by itself, can you explain to me what you mean by itself?
What do you mean? Like as an amplification? I'm using it as a amplification.
You are.
Correct.
So it's not by itself. So you're saying we can't let a bot or an AI go
if
post.
I say, look, I want you to go out there and I want you to troll every time that you see this, or this. I want you to pull from these bodies of responses and cobble together a response. And I want you to do that everywhere you see it on the internet. Go. Okay.
Yeah. Whose speech is that?
It's certainly not my speech.
It is your speech.
I would just say legally, that's still up for definition. You can assert that it's my speech in this conversation, but legally,
it's clearly your speech.
Okay.
Like
give me a legal precedent that backs
in the same way. So it's often, I think what gets people with the AI stuff is that the technology is so complicated and impressive that we forget about the analogs. But here's a really easy one for you. And this will warm the hearts of everybody from our era, Gen X. The Teddy Ruxpin dolls. Teddy Ruxpin has a recorded set of stuff and motions, and it reads the book, it tells the story, and you're like, well, we made this thing, and then we released it out into the world, and now the manufacturer isn't touching it. Now it's operating by itself, but like, what is Teddy Ruxpin saying? Is it saying its own words, or is it saying the words of its creator?
So again, though, well, you're completely missing the analog, I think, or the analogy. So, is there anything wrong with, let's say, me going door to door in my neighborhood and giving whatever message that I want to people? I mean, assuming that I had the permits to do so, right? So if I'm
Sure,
living okay. So now, if I program a lot of clones of myself to go out there and do that, right? Do those clones have the same rights that I have?
So
They're non-human clones. Now, it's
right.
one thing if I recruit a bunch of people and I train those people what to say, and those human beings go out there and deliver that message. Well, I have free speech rights. They have free speech rights. They're all human beings. I'm a human being. But I don't have. Oh, go ahead.
But that's the thing, though. It's like
if I designed a bunch of Teddy Ruxpin dolls who could walk, right, and they went door to door saying this, right, those Teddy Ruxpin dolls don't have free speech rights.
But you have the freedom of expression to create the Teddy Ruxpin dolls.
Correct, but I don't have your message. I don't have the right to unleash them in mass and.
Sure do. You could have. You could have printed out.
Again, give me an example of an adjudicated case where that was okay.
You would have printed out your whatever message you were doing, and you would have stuck it in the door handle, just like I get all the time of, a little flyer. I will cut your tree limbs for you.
Yeah.
Right. The only difference is that I got it as a piece of paper, which is a very old technology, but still a technology. And I don't look at it like, this piece of paper doesn't have free speech. And he's like, well, no, this is the free speech of the person that wrote it and then placed it, or hired someone to place it. In the same way that if it was a Teddy Ruxpin doll,
again, you have human beings making decisions along every point of that. So if I printed up 1 million flyers, I personally have to go hang them, or I have to recruit people to hang them, or I have to hire some firm to go hang them, all of which involves human beings, all of which have some share of, let's say I put some really hateful speech on there that violated a bunch of laws. Right?
Let's put the middle case in there. We'll say that the Teddy Ruxpin doll doesn't knock on the door and deliver the message, but he puts the flyer on the door. Isn't that still your free speech?
But you're assuming that it can be attributed back to me.
Well, it is attributed back to you. That's what happens in reality. It is you. Now,
okay.
You're saying, now what if it was anonymous?
Let's take it's an AI army that's out there that is parroting my whatever my information is that I want to disseminate, right? And I've programmed these bots. They're all showing up as, Carla and Jimmy and Bob and whatever. I mean, it's impossible to attribute back to me. So there's no accountability whatsoever and this is happening right now all the time.
So, but here's my point though. So not only do you have free speech, but you also have the freedom to speak anonymously.
Sure. Yes.
And you also have the freedom to use pseudonyms.
Yes, I do.
So you could print out all these things and have each one of them signed with a different name, a different pseudonym. And then you have your army of Teddy Ruxpin dolls. This is getting really weird. Your Teddy Ruxpin dolls delivering.
I just think you're dealing with a different and I'm eager for some of these cases to be adjudicated, because I don't think that any court would uphold the map that you're trying to create there, because there's too many differences.
But that's the thing, is we're talking about message being delivered that is your message, right? Your message that is being delivered anonymously or through pseudonyms, and it's done by some automated system. Right now, we can argue about this kind of automation is fundamentally different, but then you'd have to say, well, why? Is it giving your message or a different message? It's giving your message, and you intended for this behavior. Yes, I did. Well, it sounds like it's your free speech then. Now, we might say, who is the original author of this? And there might be some, investigatory question about who originally wrote it. But whoever wrote it, it's their free speech that they have distributed using a mechanical means. This is one of the things
that's again though you're
isn't that what this is?
you're not taking a transcription and saying here's Eric Hamadi's message, read and enjoy, agree or
Well, no,
stuff.
because remember it's done under pseudonym.
The AI is through these large, which you understand. So I don't understand why you're trying to like obfuscate this. Like it is creating new content as an agent of yours. You're not creating the content. It is creating content as an agent of yours, a non-sentient agent which is good with language, but it does not have the same rights to free speech, even if it's saying something somewhat aligned. For example, like
it's your speech.
For example, what do you mean? It's my speech.
So
for example, I'll give you a real easy example. So like right now, you saw this thing that just came out where the Russians had tried to pay these conservative bloggers or whatever millions of dollars, right?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Because they were parroting Russian talking points, right? And
might as well fund this.
Might as well fund them because these people are saying exactly what we believe, but they actually agree with us, so that we're going to pay for that, right? And some of these idiots actually took the money and whatever else. So then we have this whole thing that we can follow, which is kind of fun. So now, even though, let's say Vladimir Putin, right? He says this stuff on TV every day. And now let's say Tucker Carlson is saying the exact same thing, right? Is that Tucker Carlson's right to free speech, or is he parroting what Vladimir Putin said? And is that actually Vladimir Putin's speech?
So here's where I think this is one of those, like I said.
My contention is Vladimir Putin said something. Now, of course, he's in Russia. He doesn't have the right to free speech. He has whatever rights he gives himself. But like in America, he can show up here and say whatever he wants. And Tucker Carlson's a human being who has agency. He can say whatever dumbass thing he wants to say. He's got the rights. The same thing, right? But I would even, hey, dude, you're parroting Russian talking points there. I mean, you're basically a mouthpiece for Putin. In this case, right? Doesn't mean everything that you say has to do, right? But in this particular case, But those are two human beings. They have rights. The AI does not have, and that's the whole point.
Well, so here's where I keep coming back to this because I feel like the more that I've heard you talk about this, the more I think you're maybe misconstruing what this technology actually does. So if we let me put it in let me give you yet another analogy, which will be just as non-illuminating as the one before. But let's say I was an artist and I wanted to create this really interesting work of art that it was a set of these three big wheels, and on the wheels were these letters, and this 4 wheels, we'll say 4 wheels that had letters, and as the wheels turned, the letters on the wheels would line up and you would see different words appear, right? So, and it would just kind of move randomly. So every once in a while you would just see, so sometimes it'd be nonsense letters, but sometimes it'd be like actual words, that's kind of cool. And then you had another part of this that scanned it with a dictionary, and it would only show you words that were real. So if it was just like 4 random letters, but it would only show whenever a real word would show up, it would show up on there. And then when that would happen, it would print it out. Like there'd be a little picture taken of it. So you could have like a sequence of words created just by these 4 random letters.
Okay.
And let's say at some point, since it's doing 4-letter words, a string of profanity comes out of it purely by random, right? And there's some little kids that are sitting there in the audience looking at this amazing thing, and they see this
anymore. Never mind.
And people complain, and they go talk to the artist, and they're like, "Hey, that's not language we should have around children. Like, you can't say that stuff." And he's like, "I didn't say it. The machine said it."
Right.
And they would be like, No. Like the machine, did you design the machine? Yes. Is it doing what you wanted it to do? Yes. But I didn't intend for it to produce exactly that sequence of 4 letters. That's not my intent. My intent was merely to create random sets of 4 letters, and if they were real words, for them to be recorded. It's like, well,
I'm just as horrified as you are. Yeah.
Yeah. But this is your expression. This is your speech. Even
Okay.
though you've done it in this weird sort of mechanical Ouija board sort of way, this is something you made. And so the output follows
You're responsible for the output.
your freedom of speech. It doesn't have freedom of speech. It can't even, it's not like it even has a claim to it, but you do. And so, you could say, well, look,
Well,
it's
I think in this
protected.
case, in this case, you wouldn't be protected because you on purpose put obscenity in front of the children, and you're accountable for your machine's
You're
lapse.
accountable for it.
Yeah,
Right. And whatever freedom of speech you have or don't have is because of you,
you're
not
accountable
because
for
of the mechanism. Right. So if you think about AI kind of like that,
Yeah, but
ultrasimplified way.
again, AI is not like that. So I mean, like I can, again, not to belabor the point. Maybe we're not getting anywhere, but like if I go into the Gemini and I say, hey, rewrite this for me. I want this, but I want this more colorful, more flavorful, more provocative.
Funnier.
Less assertive, funnier, whatever the case may be.
And it rewrites it and does a good job.
It does a good job. And again, I can use that content for my speech, right? I could even create an account for it and let it speak on its own behalf, right? People could interact with it, which, I mean, we've seen these already, right? People can interact with it and spar with it, and just, hey, whatever you see, like, just take it up a notch, take it up a notch, take it up a notch, right? And yeah, I hear what you're saying. I don't know that there's a court case out there that says whether I'm responsible for that, whether I have the right to unleash millions of these onto a social media platform to flood. People think all of a sudden that there's overwhelming support for this when there's really not. People are told, you know what I mean? Like, so there are these things have to be adjudicated, I guess. I mean,
I hear you. I think if all you're
but
making is
there is a difference you can see between that and human communication.
So my view is that they're different only in the level of complexity and impressiveness of the technology. They're not different fundamentally in what they're doing.
No, I'm asking you to think
Right.
about, if you haven't already, which I'm sure you have. I'm asking you to think about what are do those AI bots have the same rights to free speech that a human being does?
Obviously, they wouldn't. They would only have the free speech that they inherit from the person creating either the bot or putting the input into it.
Okay. So it sounds like we do agree that they don't. And then what we may not agree on is, are you saying that because I have the right to free speech, I also have the right to create unlimited bots that say whatever I want them to say and flood whatever social media platforms and media networks that I want, and you can't do a thing about it because I have the right to free speech, and because I'm such a great coder, I have the right to do that?
Well, no, I'm not saying that either, because
so that's, I think, then we're in agreement.
it's not because of free speech. Like, you have the freedom to create such a bot, and you probably have the freedom to turn it on.
Yep.
But
if that platform sees that there's a bot and they choose to shut it down, that's not an infringement on my right to free speech. That is them curating what's going on in their community.
Well, no. So that's content moderation, which is a limitation of your free speech, in the same way that it would be a limitation of your free speech for you to say something that is against their terms of service. You're like, but I have a right to say that. Yeah, you have a right to say that, but we don't want you to say that here.
This route to arrive where I started, which is
because free speech. I think people get
okay. For everybody watching this is what we do. We pretend to disagree when we really agree for hours. It's very entertaining. Usually over liquor, though.
It's true. It's just that free speech is. I think it's so consistently misunderstood, and it's sort of switched out at random moments with other things, like the First Amendment. It's like, well, no, the First Amendment is a legal doctrine about what the government can or can't do, right? It's free speech is it's like a principle, a moral principle, right? It's not, I mean, we have laws that try to protect it, but it's not itself a law, right? So on. So saying, well, yeah, you know, you don't have the AI doesn't have free speech. I'm thinking of it as like AI doesn't have the moral ability to create and to express itself, because it's just an algorithm. I
Right.
can use it, and the things that I create with it are my creations, in the same way that the things I create with Photoshop are my creations. They're just created in a really different way.
Right.
So in that sense, it's like, well, if I kick your bot off of my platform, have I limited your free speech? Yes. Have I limited it in an impermissible or immoral way? Probably not. You know, but like, I don't know. This is one of those things where we probably agree more than we disagree. But I do enjoy making these analogies for you, and
Yeah.
I think I want to go create the 4 thing and see how much.
I want to see it. I want to see
How
what
many
kind of
bad words it
profanity you can.
produces.
Yeah.
Try to make it as entertaining
Man.
as possible.
That was good, man. This is a good one. Good episode. So
We
I
got
appreciate all you guys for
interesting.
tuning in. And Amber Russell does have HBO. And
Yeah,
shoot me.
I'll give it a watch. Absolutely.
Yep. Anybody on here that doesn't watch Bill Maher, he's my favorite. You're missing out. All right. Talk to you guys next week. Thanks, Russ.
Peace.